Welcome to Rhythm and Tech, where music and technology come together to create a beat like never before. Your hosts Kate Hill and JX Mullins bring their expertise and passion for both music and technology to the microphone. Join them as they explore the latest trends, innovations, and stories at the intersection of these two fascinating worlds. So sit back, turn up the volume, and get ready for a journey through rhythm and tech.
All right, we're live.
All right. Welcome back to Rhythm and Tech. I am your host, Kay Hill, and my partner on the left of me is
John JX Mullins.
Even though he really not on the left of me, he right in front of me today. We're doing it a little different. Now, you might have heard me say before that we ever take a break, we're gonna come back with some thunder as far as what we bring on the podcast. I still can't quit talking about the last episode with my brother Ali Goins. Like, he really set the tone, for what we're trying to do moving forward. So just like that, we are back today with another super dope, phenomenal guest that I just happen to know. This one is real special to me for one main reason, because I actually know this cat in both assets. I mean, both, perspective of my life, in the day job and the aspiring career and whatnot. I know him from the music game. I know him from the 9 to 5. That's what I should have said. I danced all around that just to make that point right there. I want to give a special shout out to our guest today, Donald DJ Salmon. Did I pronounce that right, my brother?
Yep, Salmon.
His name is spelled. His name is spelled just like just like the fish.
Yeah. Your favorite.
And the reason I focus on that so hard, because my wife, she give me a hard time for not being able to pronounce the word salmon. Cause that's my favorite fish, and I always be like, I want some salmon. You remember when Uncle Ron used to cook the grilled salmon with the brown sugar on it?
Right.
So I wanted to make sure I pronounce your name right, if not anything else.
It's salmon, but again, people say salmon, and I respond to it.
But listen, my brother. I definitely want to welcome you to the show.
For sure.
Thank you for agreeing to be a guest.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing your expertise. I just want to get right into it.
For sure.
I'm not sure if you remember this or not. The first time I met you,
Okay.
well, the first time I remember seeing you around, I don't think we had met at that point. It was back in the Jack Spratt days.
Oh, okay.
When Kazi, I think Kazi and Bishop Omega was throwing events at Jack Spratt.
Right.
Was that on Franklin Street?
On Franklin Street, yeah.
Yeah, man. You know how it used to be, real small venue,
Sure.
but cats going there, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. If you dope, it's going to be obvious. If you're not, it's going to be obvious.
Right.
And the one thing I noticed about you, like while everybody rocking or everybody doing whatever, you in the corner like really analyzing cats, man. Like really, I can see you mentally like analyzing and breaking cats down, you know what I'm saying, skill set wise and everything. And I remember rocking, and I'm looking at you, man. Your poker face is just like, I think it was you and what's my man name with the braids that had the braids back in the day? DJ. Was it DJ A? Gosh, I can't remember his name for nothing. Wore glasses, but
Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah,
he DJ'd at the library a lot.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah, it was you and him. And I'm like, dang, man, like, yo, I must be whacked tonight, bro. Like, yo, I can't get none of these cats, man. Like, wow, man. And when I used to run into you after that, you will always tell me, man, like, how you a fan of my style, how I really, rhyme from the heart. I rhyme like I supposed, like I was meant to rhyme.
Yeah,
that's one thing that you always told me. You know what I'm saying?
You're supposed to be doing this. That was always the feeling.
That's what you said.
Right.
And
that was always the feeling that I had when I saw you perform. Like, this guy should be rhyming. He should have a mic and he should be doing rhymes. Like, the voice, the style, the approach. You just understand the culture in a way, and it comes through the art, right? And that doesn't happen a lot, right? Like, because I think a lot of people, they're performing and they're doing what they think people want to see.
Right.
It doesn't have it's not natural, right? Because they're just kind of doing, like, imitating a thing.
Right.
And I always notice, like, with your work, and when I would listen to the music, like, even if I'm not seeing you perform, if I'm just, like, listening to a joint, it's just like, yo, the sound, it's there, the feeling is there, the emotion is there, the topics, the subject, like, everything. It just always worked for me.
Right.
So yeah, you quickly became like one of my favorite guys from around the way. Like,
Okay, so I'm gonna wipe my tear away. I'm gonna lace up my boots, take my flowers, and I'm gonna move on.
Take them. You deserve them. You deserve them.
Okay.
Because, again, not everybody has that. Like the thing. Like you listen to like somebody like say Karis One.
Right.
Like when you hear his voice, this dude is a rap. Like that's an MC. That's
Right.
what it sounds like. And it's that same kind of feeling. Like this person should be emceeing. This
Right.
is what the culture sounds like. It feels like if an alien came from outer space and said, give me an example of what hip hop is.
Right.
Like, show me that. I want to understand that. Then I would feel comfortable pulling out a K Hill record and saying, this is what it sounds like. You see what I'm saying? Like it is a fair representation of what the culture should sound like, or or what I'm used to hearing it sound like. I don't want to pigeonhole it into a corner because then it can't grow.
Right.
When you pigeonhole things, but it definitely for me, your sound, your approach to the whole game, and like just your rhyme style and all of that, man, it was just like, yo, this is what it is right here.
You're about to sabotage my entire interview. Seriously, and that was serious.
For sure.
But the night I seen you, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like you will see the poker face from various cats. It can be because you down with another rapper that's performing that night, or you about to rhyme next or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You never know why you get in the poker face. But it's like that night when I seen you, I'm like, okay, this cat does something. He is somebody. I just don't know what he does yet. I don't know. I just know that he does something.
Right.
He's somebody, And the next time I ran into you, you was at WXDU.
Okay, yeah.
Working with Sam's.
Sam's, yeah.
Okay?
For sure. Yeah.
I'm seeing you again. I'm like, okay,
These spaces. Right.
it's coming together. You know what I'm saying? Next time I seen you after that, I think you was already a part of the Black Jedi.
Yeah,
Zulu?
at some point, yeah.
Okay.
After that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're
So that's
gonna lightly touch on that,
Yeah, that's part of the story. Yeah, sure.
Then, man, I think the one that really got me, when I started my 9-to-5 career.
Sure, yeah.
Let it be known now, I've always had a job, y'all, all right? But this particular,
Gotta keep
the career that I
going.
have right now,
Right, for sure.
You're always nervous because, it's new people around all the time,
Right.
I was familiar with some of the people.
Yep.
Like I seen Lil Bob, and I'm like, okay, it's a party now.
Yeah, for
you know
sure.
what I'm saying,
Sure. Yeah,
right?
Yep, all day. Yeah.
But,
I remember when he was out there.
When I started seeing some of the management and some of the executives,
Sure.
and I seen one of my own,
Yeah.
I seen that same poker face, that I seen out in the audience.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I am at home. I'm like, this guy is like a real go-getter.
Yeah, I was managing a team of people at Time Warner, which is
Right.
now Spectrum.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I worked in telecom for 17 years or so. I spent quite a bit of time there, and I opened out my career. So I went to North Carolina Central University, graduated in 1996.
Okay.
After graduation, I monked around for a little while and ended up at IBM.
Okay.
Out in Research Triangle Park. And I spent a couple of years there. And during that time, like I just kind of figured out and learned that like I wasn't having a good time with like corporate culture, just like sitting in a cubicle and doing that whole thing. It wasn't working for me. So I always had a love for the culture, for hip hop, and wanted to work with it, and work in it. And at the time, I had met an MC named Cassius from Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay.
I was dating a girl, and she was her brother. And he was really dope. He could sing, he could rap. He had just, multitude of talents and so forth. I said, you know what? I'm gonna take this opportunity. I'm gonna manage this guy. So after having left, I left IBM and things like that, I decided to move to Providence. And I moved to Providence, Rhode Island.
For Cassius.
Yeah. We were working, recording, trying to find him work, deals. Like this was this is like 98, 99, going into the 2000s in that time.
Okay.
Right? So there was a transition happening in the music business, and I was still we were still running around trying to chase a deal type of thing. Right?
Okay.
Like recording, go to New York and try to find, somebody who was like interested in it, and maybe they give us cash money type, Puff Daddy type money. To
Yes,
kinda
sir.
go and do
Yes,
their
sir.
thing. Like everybody was doing that same kind of
Yes,
thing.
sir.
Universal was running around giving people like millions of dollars to
Yep.
kind of go out and put out a project and stuff. So we were like, well, let's try to chase that down. Little do we know that like the internet was starting to really bubble up.
Right.
So we weren't searching for an audience in the right place at the right. We were just, our timing was off.
Now, once again, what year timeline?
This is
was
like 98, 99.
Okay,
you know,
okay, right there,
like
right there.
as the transition as like music listeners are starting to kind of say, well, I'm just going to go online and just download this stuff, right? Like they weren't running to the record stores anymore, and the internet was kind of changing the way people were consuming. And I feel like we were probably still chasing down the old way, and we weren't forward thinking enough. But at the time, I was in the mix and I was doing my thing, right? So that was what it was. So I spent time in Providence. You know, we're running around Boston and going to New York and, you know, shows. And he had a little event that he did with a boxing match that appeared on ESPN. He did some performances there and just different stuff, trying to find a way. I ended up, I met Eddie F from Heavy D and the Boys.
That is huge, bro. That's huge.
Met him, went to a studio at his crib, and he spent some time with us and taught us some things. And met Special Ed and spent some time with him. He was super cool. And so we had met people and started to kind of push around and so forth. But things began to slow up.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I gotta keep money flowing through. So I ended up taking a job at the cable company.
Okay.
I went to Cox Communications. That's who provides cable in that area, up that part of the country, Cox.
So you've been in the industry since the early 2000s.
Yeah, so I had gone to. That's when I started in telecom. Was in the early 2000s.
Okay.
So I went to, and I was just like at the call center answering calls, answering your phone calls about why your internet was down,
okay,
why your cable wasn't working.
Now, have you always worked in that section, or did you actually get to touch field operations at all?
So yeah, I started out just like customer service type thing, and I quickly moved up the scale. So I started managing people in the call center, and then I was really tired of the long and strenuous winters of the Northeast.
Yes, sir.
Especially like Providence, Rhode Island, the winters are harsh, and I was just like, it was depressing to me. I was like, oh my God, the spring is coming. It's still like 30 degrees outside. I was just like, I gotta get back south. So Cox's headquarters is in Atlanta, Georgia. So I applied for positions down there and got one.
Wow.
So I left Providence with the company and moved down to Atlanta, and I was reporting to a vice president there and just kind of doing like a national sales support type of thing there.
So you went from one extreme to the other.
Kind of. Yeah, definitely.
In terms of weather.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm a Southern boy. I grew up here in North Carolina, but when I came back from Providence, I had been up there long enough to kind of need to be reacclimated. Right. So when I got back, and I skipped North Carolina and went all the way to Georgia, and it was ridiculous that first summer. I was just like, good grief, how did I ever survive this as a child? But I ended up back in Atlanta, and working for, and spent some time there. And after some time in Atlanta, a couple of years, I decided to come back to North Carolina.
Okay.
So I came back. I didn't have a job when I got back because I came back with nothing going on. Like it was a family thing. I was, my mother was getting elderly and was starting to, get sick and so forth. And I was like, I need to be, closer to family. So I came back to North Carolina. I didn't have anything going on. So I just left a cable company. Let me see what's going on with the cable company. Right. And so, and just kind of restarted my career because I didn't go in management. I went in at customer service. Let me just get myself foot in the door. And once I get in there, I'll find my way to where I should be. And I came in customer service, spent a few months there, and within a few months I was doing real-time adherence and working with dispatch and starting to manage people and do things like that. So whenever I got into a corporate environment, I was always trying to figure out a way to get myself moved up so I could get paid.
Yes, sir.
And so, and also, I'm a team leader. I can, I'm good with directing teams and so forth. And I felt like it would be the best way for me to kind of use that talent. So, I ended up going and I stayed for another 12, 15 years.
Wow. Now, I started 6, 7 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
I think 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when I started because I actually been trying to get in that company for a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just happened to get in.
Great company, yeah.
All right, so once I got in, I'm like, okay, my music career is just out the door.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm trying to put kids through school. Mm-hmm. Like it's gone. I ain't gonna have no time to do this. Like it's over. And
mm-hmm.
God is if that's where you're gonna order me at, that's where I'm gonna be at. Mm-hmm. And then you popped out. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. You pop out. This is while you're doing beats and bars and everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, wow. So this man is doing this And he's still
So-
able to maintain, you know.
Yeah. So like Beats and Bars, so Crystal Taylor,
Yes.
the founder of Beats and Bars, she came at me. Actually, it was her idea.
Right.
100% her idea. Her idea. She came at me. She was like, "Yo," and we had met at a couple of events like that. We were talking about hip hop culture and so forth. So
Right.
I kind of, while I was working in telecom, I still have a love for the culture and a
Absolutely.
love for the arts, and I wanted to be around it. So I still found spaces to go and at least enjoy it, even if I'm not making money.
Yes.
This never really was about the money.
Right.
It was about the culture, the art, wanting to be around it, wanting to be near it. And so I just continued to do that, once I got back to North Carolina. And I ran into Crystal, and Crystal was like, "Yo, I got an idea for a festival." And we had chatted, and she was like, "I need some help, like kind of getting this off the ground or whatever.
Right.
Would you like to get involved?" And I did. I jumped on, and for me, like that opportunity that she provided for me kind of gave me a chance to kind of reinvigorate the energy around hip hop culture. Because at that time, I really was focused on just like working, punching
Right.
the clock,
Yep.
doing a 9 to 5
Exactly.
action.
Exactly.
Was going to be just doing that, but I was hungry to find something to do, and I didn't need to be making a bunch of money. I needed somewhere to put that energy. And when she came at me and said, "I want to start a festival," I was like, "This is a perfect place to put it." And so, yeah, I helped her, and we put Beats and Bars out in the world, and that ended up happening.
What was your main responsibility in that? Was it marketing?
Yeah,
the
so
marketing aspect?
in the very beginning, it was just like figuring out how to get it done.
Right.
Because at the time, it was not like it was zero. I was there the first meetings that were had.
I remember.
We were there.
Yeah.
It was zero. There was no name, no nothing. And so it was just like, hey, like, help me think of a name. Help me think of so it was just like those opening, the days of infancy of the whole thing.
Right.
There were some previous, so there had been a festival in Durham before that. It was like the Durham Hip Hop Festival or something like that.
That was Tune and Lost.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
And so they had put it on a couple of years and had found some success. I
Yep.
bought tickets. I went, what I mean? And I enjoyed it. But then they had decided not to hold it that particular year. And
So they left a gap.
there was a gap.
Okay.
Exactly. And so when that gap got left, Crystal, being the business person that she is,
Yep.
was like, "I'm filling that gap." And so she jumped in and she was like, and we had to put it together pretty quick.
Right.
Because you don't figure out that there's a gap until, it shows itself.
Right.
And she, being the business person that she is, she's aggressive and gets it done.
My God.
And she was like, "Yo, DJ, I'm trying to do this festival, bro. Like, you got any ideas? You want to help out? This, that, and the other?" And I said, "Sure." And I did. And it became Beats and Bars. And it's still, she's, after that first year, she kind of carried it on and kept on going.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing what she's done. And I'm
Oh,
so
yeah.
super proud of her. And I'm glad to
Absolutely.
see her continuing to work the brand and make it bigger and do
Yeah.
different things in different spaces with it.
I've definitely had the opportunity to work with Crystal and the Beats and Bars Festival and stuff like that. And yeah, she run a tight ship, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
Straight up and down. Like
She's
when I
a thoroughbred,
first,
yeah.
it's funny because when I first met her, and if you know Crystal, man, you know what's up. When I first met her, man, she was helping with the Durham Festival at the time, and I was one of the judges of a beat battle.
Beat battle, okay, sure.
And she came up to me, man. She ain't said, "Hey." She ain't introduced herself or nothing. She just looked at my wrist to make sure I had my band. And then after that, she introduced.
Right, yo.
And then after that, she introduced herself. But I got nothing but love and respect for her.
Yeah, for sure.
She's definitely given me
Yeah, man.
some dope opportunities and whatnot.
Yeah,
And,
man.
I even hope to have her on this podcast.
I hope so.
one
You
day.
definitely have her on here because, I will say one thing. She's one of those folks in the community around who's created a lot of opportunities for people to just kind of get out in front of crowds
Absolutely.
and perform and whatnot. And as you know, as an artist, like, man, it's great. Like, you can go in the booth and record and, come up with the stuff that's in your head and put it out and make it happen.
Right.
But you got to be able to get in front of crowds and perform that stuff and make people see if people feel it.
Right.
And I feel like what Crystal has done over the years is really done a great job of just kind of creating spaces where artists around the way can do that.
Now, see, and not to talk about that too much because I do want her to be able to go.
Oh,
in
for sure,
depth.
yeah. I don't want to eat her space up, yeah.
But you was a part of that, so I do kind of, want to touch on her a little bit. But the Beats and Bars Fest was more than just music. It was also about educating as well. A couple of panels here and whatnot. Educational panels to uplift the culture.
Yeah.
And you was aligned with that.
Right. I sat on one of the panels.
And
stuff,
different
yeah.
aspects, from what I can see, different aspects of your journey, you've been doing work like that. Your involvement with Black Jedi Zulu. that's another group that you're involved with that helps the community, helps uplift the community and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So I'm seeing, I'm checking your style, brother.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
The thing is, man, like, I think if you really love a culture, like, again, it doesn't have to do with the money. Like, none of these things that you're talking about are like opportunities where it was like, oh, this is a chance for you to go make six figures or $100,000 or $1 million or whatever. It was never anything about that. Of course, like when I was running the label and doing management and stuff, of course I wanted that to be financially successful. Obviously, you want that to happen.
We definitely want to get the bag.
Clearly, you want the bag, right? Right? You do. But like I said, I mean, I think if a soothsayer would have came to me and said, "Hey, son, I got some news for you. You're never gonna make a dime at this."
Right.
Like I know I can see the future. I know it, and I'm telling you, you're never gonna make a dime at this. I still would have been where I was.
That
at.
says a lot.
You feel me? Like I still would have gone to those places. I still would have been because I wanted to be there. I wanted to be part of the culture. Like I was born in '73 when the culture was being born.
Right.
Like we grew up together.
Wow, somebody is finally older than me.
Yeah, right. You're not the oldest guy in the room anymore. Like
we ain't that far apart, though, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So
apart,
you know, me and the culture grew up together, and as the culture was a child, so was I, and we were up together. So as it grew up and we became grown, I wanted to still be around. I didn't want to leave the culture. It was like, you know, you see the old rock and roll dude who's like 70 years old with the long hair and his favorite band's t-shirt on.
Yes, sir.
That's me, right? Like, you know, I'm gonna be the bald-headed dude with the Wu-Tang shit on. Like it's what it's gonna be.
Yo, but the crazy part is I know you from the dreads. I see you from the transition from the dreads. You rocking.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I keep on pushing.
Brother, you rocking.
I keep on pushing.
I hope
man.
I can make that transition.
I keep on
you know
pushing.
what I'm saying?
It's funny. I got the dreads when I was in Providence. I couldn't find barbers that I was feeling like that.
Right.
So I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna dread my hair. And I started getting dreads and stuff. And
I'm sorry.
When I got down here.
I hate to say dreads because I talked to this lady from the islands.
Sure.
She hates the term dreads. I meant to say locks.
Yeah. There's
out of respect.
I hear you.
Yeah,
there's a mixed bag around that.
It really is.
I still say dreads.
Hip hop says dreads.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
I know plenty of people. Matter of fact, my paternal family is from Jamaica.
Right. Okay. Good.
And,
Thank you.
Like people saying dreadlocks is not uncommon.
Okay.
People say it all the time.
Yeah, this lady like really.
People, again, like with offense, you can take offense, and I get it. Like if you have a feeling about that thing, then you have a feeling about.
She
that
really
thing.
G-checked me, man.
I've heard.
She was a sweetheart too, but she like. Man.
I've been checked about it here and there.
Yeah.
And I'm walking around with them and people checking me about what I'm calling my own hair.
Right.
But whatever. Okay, cool. I'm gonna let that rock. But again, I take no offense to your, calling them dreads. But for anyone who's listening who's offended, I'm sorry. But that's what I've always called them. Frankly.
Okay.
And when I had them and on my own head, that's what I refer to them as. So.
Word, man. Yeah. Nah, it's just sometimes you could be watching somebody and not knowing that you're watching them. Subconsciously. You've been an inspiration to me, bro.
Well, thank you.
To see you, how you bob and weave between the boardroom and the room with the boys.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Oh, that's dope. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
It's been real. It's been real inspiring, man.
Hey, man, I gotta pay my bills and shit, but that don't stop me from like loving the thing.
Yeah.
The thing is still what I love. Like I'm still gonna be there. But I'm gonna get my money, right? Like I still gotta get out here and earn.
Well, the way that I kind of look at you, following your career, you're the guy that goes in, set up shop, help it scale somewhat, and then move on to the next thing. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing at all. That's super dope. You know.
Yeah. It can help build a skeleton, right? Building skeletons of things, and then once the skeleton is built, everybody's got an idea as to where this can go.
Right.
Kind of get to the next thing. So I'm with that, man.
Okay, so.
And that's the best way to help build community is doing that because, for me, I was the same way. Like I always did music for the passion. Like Hill knows, like the first 10 years I was involved in music. Like I would work a regular job, then I would come in and do run the boards, do photography, do stuff to support people. But it was all for the passion. Like it was never about the money. I mean, and then sometimes like the lights got cut off because
lights got cut off.
Yeah.
Why you yelling at me? I ain't had no money then either.
Exactly. But you pour into the community hoping that it'll build. Right. And this is my first time meeting you.
For sure.
But just hearing the things that Kev has said, and just the background research that I did before coming in here, especially like with Beats and Bars. Yeah. When Beats and Bars first came around, I had been out of music for probably a good 10 years, and I got excited about it. I didn't go to the Durham the festival that preceded it, because I think that's the one that 97.5 was involved in.
I think they had some involvement, like especially in that second year. I think they had gotten involved.
And that, I mean, and this is just my personal opinion, but that kind of turned me off just because, you know, there's
radio.
It's the commercial interest in it, and I'm not knocking. You know, I still listen to 97.5.
Right. Me too.
But you know.
Yeah, I'd still check them out.
But when Beats and Bars, and you know, I don't know Crystal personally, but I've admired everything that she's done, just like y'all have.
She's a hardworking person.
But when I stepped into Beats and Bars that first time, like it took me back to how I first felt about hip hop and just seeing that community. You know, seeing the artists perform. I didn't get to go to the panels, but just seeing all that, I was just like. You know, I really wanted to be like, why didn't we have this 20 years ago or 10 years ago, 15 years ago? That's great shit. So, you know, here's my flowers to you for helping, you know, with Crystal and involved, that whole organization and getting that off the ground. Because I think that did a lot to revitalize the North Carolina hip hop scene.
For sure. I mean, again, like, Crystal's work there was super important. And like you were talking about with Kazi, like Kazi's been putting on venues for people for years.
Man, listen,
like
bro.
decades at this point, frankly. I mean, and Jack Spratt, like that was just another venue that he was putting on for people. And, you know, this is past the 90s now. We're well into the 2000s at this point when Jack Spratt was going on. And, you know, getting that crowd together every Sunday night. Like I was out there, I know, for 100 Sundays in a row. Like, dude, every single Sunday. And it was one of those situations, because actually I was at the time. And
doing the jazz, I was
working there. And I was off on Mondays.
So that was great for you.
It was my night. Sunday was my Saturday, frankly. So it would just create an environment, a nice place for me to go. My folks was gonna be there. Hip hop was gonna be on. Like I was be able to see artists and check people out and whatnot. So like that energy that I had as like a manager type, like looking at artists and checking them out and stuff, it gave me a space to go and kind of play with that. And that's why when you saw me, I'm sitting off in the corner. You know, blank faced, just kind of watching people saying, wow, I wonder what could I do with that? Like just thinking through it in my head. What could I do with this person? Could this person make it? Like what could, you know, how do you market this person? Just kind of the business side of it, playing with that in my head.
You know, I use the term poker face for lack of. That's what you was doing.
Like I was analyzing, like looking at like, yo, this person could do this, that, and the other. And the thing about that is like, even if I'm not necessarily crazy about a person's work, I can still see a space for that work. Because there's tons of other people who would be into that. And I'm thinking about it in that way. So it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I've got to be into it myself. I got to want to ride to it for me to want to have something to do with it. Like, no, if the culture, if there's a piece of the culture that would dig that, let's get down. You know what I'm saying? So, man, that was what it was about. Just trying to keep a space where I could allow my love for the arts and the culture to just kind of have a space to be and exist and work.
Now, was you a part of Kazi's team? You know,
no,
pretty much.
No, not really. No, I was a supporter. I really was a supporter, man. Like, you know, just be there every week, right? Like, and so I guess if you mean by team, like the people who were just kind of there every week, no matter what, then that way, But I mean, he was doing it, and I was a consumer largely.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
Jack Spratt was Kazi catching lightning in a bottle again.
Yeah, man.
Because when I met him, he was doing Mike Mondays at the 506. And I gotta give Kazi a lot of credit, man, on a lot of levels, man. First of all, he's I don't know if I want to say doppelganger or bizarro. And the only reason I say that is because we both are the exact same age. We have the exact same birthday.
All right.
His name Kevin. My name Kelvin.
Right.
My name K Hill.
Right.
But my name was Kevin H. Ill when I first moved to the area.
Oh, Kevin
when I
H.
first
Ill,
moved to the area, my name was like Kevin H. Ill, right?
God.
And his name was Kevin
I want you
Cosby,
to
right?
be Kevin H. Ill.
Right?
That shit is
You know some old school
dope.
stuff, right?
Oh, that's so dope.
Boy, you don't want to talk about the names I had. But people used to get us confused
Is that right?
because
Yeah, I can imagine.
because we at the time we had like the same type of content, right? My name K Hill, but Kazi's in Chapel Hill, so they thinking
There's all kinds of reasons.
you know what I'm saying? And then I joined Soul Dojo for a while. That was his label.
Yeah.
And
I forgot about that.
and he's actually responsible, man, for giving me my first placement.
Is that right?
You know what I'm saying? He did a joint with Nature from the Firm.
Nature, yeah, I remember that song.
And and I produced that.
Yeah, okay,
And he had it pressed up, all that good stuff, and that came out the same year as all my other first official records, man. And he just one of those people that made me look like I was doing way more than I was, really was. You know what I'm saying? And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
And if you was ever fortunate enough to attend the Mike Mondays, man, like it went from a local joint to like a lyricist lounge type joint.
Yeah.
Like it went from, one day you got somebody like just the locals in the area. Then next time you might look up and Sean P might be in the building. Jean Grey might be in the building. You know what I'm saying? Just coming through because they heard about, what was going on. Fayetteville used to come through real heavy.
Sure. Yeah.
And people always ask me, do I remember when J. Cole used to come through? And I'm like, nah, I didn't. But man, I was on such a high then. Not ego, but it's just like, had so much going on then, it's just like, all I could see was,
Right. You see what's directly in front of you.
Right.
Right.
And
you're an artist, right? So you're in the midst of it.
Artist and producer. Right. I was in the beat battles, spanking some cats, getting spanked by cats. You know what I'm saying? And the special thing about it is, I don't want to stay on this too long. I'm just giving out some quick flowers.
Yeah, let's do it.
The one thing that stood out about his beat battles is a majority of the cats went on to do some great things. You had a young Apple Juice Kid, you had a young Crisis, you had a young J. Cole. He was therapist then, from what I understand.
Yeah, different name from what I understand.
To just see the cats that went on to do what they did later on in the game, man, just says a lot.
Kazi created a foundation upon which others could build. And I mean, it's interesting because that summer before I left to go to Providence, I met Kazi then.
Right. Wow.
It's interesting. I mean, you're forcing me to go back and to think about this stuff. So I met him, and the artist that I was managing, Cassius, he had come down. So I was like trying to show him around to the people that I at least knew around the way.
Right.
And a friend of mine was like, yo, there's this dude at Chapel Hill. He had started this organization called like the Hip Hop Club, something like hip hop organization at Chapel Hill.
Right.
And he's got some things going on over there. We should go check him out. So we went over there. And at the time, Kazi had started a student organization around hip hop. I think he had gotten a little budget from the university or something like that.
Oh, you went way back.
Yeah. I mean, because he was still a student at the time. And so I can remember Kazi, he may not want me to say this, but I remember when he was really starting out.
Right.
Like he had an office, the university had given him like a room for an office space, and he had put a makeshift booth together. Right? Like, and you would go in there and it's like you would have to kind of duck down because the ceiling or the roof of this thing was kind of coming down in on you.
Right.
And you had to go in there and kind of hunched over to get on the mic and rhyme. And he was still figuring out how to put all the stuff together to make
the
it
hunger,
work.
man.
Like he was still in that early stage.
Yeah.
And then I left and went to Providence and spent time up there, and things bubbled down here ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I came back, and this dude had a record deal with Loud. Like he had done it.
Right.
So much had happened in that
man.
interim time. He had grown himself into this otherly thing, and he's putting it on for other people to be on stage and all of this stuff. Like he just really just went well beyond what you could have even imagined. And so he was one of those people who kind of inspired me. When I got back, when I saw him, I was like, dude, like you crushed it out here. And that was what got me to start going to Jack Spread every week. I'm like, I gotta just, be around. Even if I'm not doing it, let me just go check out what they're doing. And we became cool. Like I still, I would consider him a friend now. Like,
So one thing I can honestly say is you prided yourself around being around the right people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I can't. If there's any talent that I have, it's just like being in the right place at the right time, or being in the right spaces, and kind of making connections with the right people and building good relationships.
Right.
I feel like
Okay.
That's, what I've been able to do.
Okay, super. Right now, let's talk evolution.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you said as far as with the music industry right now. You know what I'm saying? I know your heart is still like, there.
Still very much love the
I see you
culture,
checking
man.
in all the time.
Right. I'm
You know what
always
saying?
checking people out. I'm always checking out the culture.
You always, on Facebook, you will always like just pop up out of the blue and set something straight. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's for educational purposes or, you always make sure you check. Your ear is to the street.
For sure.
Your ear is still to the street.
For sure.
You're not doing telecom anymore.
Nope. Left
Okay.
telecom, got into real estate.
So what does the future hold for Donald Salmon?
So interesting. So I ended up leaving telecom in like 2018, 19 timeframe. I got a real estate license because I really got to a place, that feeling about like not wanting to be in a cubicle anymore.
Yep.
That I had when I left IBM, that feeling came back, and it came back heavy because I had been in a cubicle for like 15 years.
Right.
So it was really just like, I can't do this anymore. So I had to find me a different hustle. So I got a real estate license. The real estate market in North Carolina was bubbling, has been bubbling for years. I was like, I'm going to get on, and this will give me an opportunity to kind of be out and about and amongst the people. So I got licensed in 2017, and I continued. I was still working at this point, it's Charter. Right. So I'm still working at Charter. I got licensed. I ended up hanging my license at Berkshire Hathaway.
Wow.
So I ended up, going on with them in Durham. I had my license there. And I spent those first couple of years just kind of learning the business, like figuring out how to be a real estate broker.
It's one of the best.
Yeah.
Is that Warren Buffett?
Yeah, Warren Buffett owns that brand. Yep. Yeah, it is Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway. That's where all his stock and stuff is.
Right.
His wealth is built out of that. So, I ended up at Berkshire Hathaway. And I brokered with them for a couple of years, learned a bunch. And then the pandemic came.
I wanted to ask you, how did COVID affect you business-wise?
It affected it profoundly.
But I was going to skip it.
We can get to it.
No, you can do it. Let's do it.
So, the pandemic hit, man. Went through personal changes. My mother passed away. Different things, like life
During
stuff.
that time?
Yeah, the 2018 she passed.
Oh, man.
Hager, who was heavy in the scene.
Yes.
David Hager, that's my line brother.
Yeah,
we pledged
man.
fraternity together. That was my best friend in the world.
And he was around that scene.
He was around that scene.
Yeah.
So actually, when I was in Providence, he was still here in North Carolina,
Right.
around the scene, around like with 506.
Yes,
and with
yes,
him and
right.
Kazi were super tight.
That's
that
my
was his
man,
man,
too, yo.
right? Like, all of them. He's part of that crew. As
Right.
a matter of fact, when I was in Providence, he would call me on the phone. Would y'all be at shows and stuff? He'd be like, "Yo, I'm backstage with this person." Or I'm talking to this person right now.
Right.
Check this person out.
Right.
And like, so he was trying to keep me connected to what was going on here, even though I wasn't. Right. So that was what was going on there. Well, he passed away in 2018.
Right.
And like months, before my mother passed away. So like within this, it was like an 8-month frame from 2018 where things just went absolute haywire.
Yeah.
That all happened, and the pandemic jumped off. By that point, I had already left Charter.
So all this stuff was like right behind each other.
One behind these events were happening back to back to back to back. And honestly, I was just like trying to figure out how to mentally hold it all together. I was really having a difficult time.
Because you can't really communicate with anybody like you want to.
No.
Because when it comes to things like that, when it comes to emotional situations like that, you really need to speak to somebody in the physical.
Right, yeah, sure, for sure.
And not on Zoom or,
Yeah.
But go ahead on, bro.
It worked out because I left Charter and trying to figure myself out. And so at that point, I'm full-time real estate broker. Well, with real estate, like it's the kind of game where you only eat what you kill, right? And if you ain't killing, you ain't eating.
Yes, sir.
And at that time, like I was very early in the business, like I wasn't killing that much.
You was getting killed.
I was getting killed, frankly. And I'm trying to I'm doing Uber, I'm doing whatever I got to do to keep money flowing through while I'm getting this thing off the ground. Then the pandemic hits, which drives things even crazier. But in the midst of all of this, I ran into a company called Orchard Brokerage, and they were hinged on changing the way we do real estate transactions. And I'm with them to this day, actually. And
was it because they was trying to adjust to what,
so they
what was
had already
happening?
been the pandemic. They had existed before the pandemic. They were actually founded
Okay.
in 2017, around the time that I got my license. That company started up.
Okay.
But they had a different approach to a real estate transaction. They were looking more to kind of allow people to buy a new house before they sell the old one, and
Right.
still sell the old one at full property, at full value, and get that right. Which is a change to the way things happen now. Most of the time, if you own a house and you want to move to a new one,
Yep.
you have to make an offer on a new house and sell this one before you can move to the new one, because the loan is based on your selling the old house, right?
Right.
Like, and all of that. But Orchard is looking to change all of that. And this company popped up. I had a friend who was working there. She was like, look, they're changing the way we do real estate. And I was like, I'm interested. And I ended up getting hired there. And I've been there for the last couple of years. Yeah. And that's really kind of got my real estate business rolling.
Okay.
And things have been working well since then. I do have some changes coming up in the near future, and I'll announce those at the right time.
Okay.
But yeah, I spent the last couple of years at Orchard brokering real estate and kept it pushing.
Okay. So is that gonna be and I know it's too early to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Is that gonna be like final destination? I hate to say it like that, but
Yeah,
kind of
but
like the bread and butter.
Right? Yeah.
Of where, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's definitely the bread and butter. I'm gonna be ultimately, opening my own brokerage. And
Okay.
stuff. So that's what I'm working on that right now, putting
Right.
together the ins and outs.
Yep.
Of my own brokerage. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. So instead of like a record label or something like that,
No record label?
no record label, not right now. But I mean, if an opportunity comes, the culture's still there, and I'm still attached to it in various ways. The money motivation isn't there like
Right.
that. It's not like, I'm trying to get in business and get with this. That's not there, but I'm always gonna have a feeling and a love for the culture and want to be around it and
Word.
experience it at the highest level that I can.
You know what killed the aspiration of wanting to have a record label for me?
What's that?
Chris Rock, man.
How's that?
He killed me, man. He killed my spirit,
How's
man.
that?
I don't know if you see his latest Netflix special or whatever.
I have, yeah.
He made the comment, black people don't have no money. All we got is something and a couple of record companies.
Okay, yeah. Which is true.
Damn, man.
There's some truth there.
even though it's some truth to that, but today it's not
Right.
entirely the truth.
Well, this is what I say about like comics and when they say things. A comic's job is to make people laugh, right?
Right,
They don't
right,
have
right.
to-
A laugh.
Right,
A
a
laugh.
laugh.
Yeah, a
100%
laugh.
is their job is to get people to laugh. People
Right.
who they don't know, their job is to figure out a way to get those people to laugh. And oftentimes when they'll go to a topic, and they're not required to go all the way into the topic.
Right,
They're
right,
only
right.
required to go as far as the laugh is.
Right.
And then they can leave. They don't have to be honest or tell the truth about the issue or fully, suss out the issue.
Okay.
They don't have to do that. They're just telling you a joke. And
But what Chris Rock does, though, and I don't know if he intentionally does this, but when he did that, I laugh, right? But I'm like, damn. Like, he's on to something. Like, he's telling us that we need to do more.
or it depends
Okay,
on
go
perspective,
ahead,
right?
go ahead.
It depends on perspective.
Go ahead.
Either it's that we need to do more, or we're not achieving at the levels that we should be achieving given the work that we've put in these spaces for
Right.
various reasons.
Right.
Right? Like, I could take the real estate, for example. Like, of all the real estate brokers in the United States, like, black people make up like 14% of the population in the country.
Right.
14%. We make up about 6% of the real estate brokers in the country. So we're in real estate at half the pace that we are in the country, right? Less than half. We're at
Okay.
6%. The average black broker the average white broker makes probably a third more than the average black broker.
Okay.
Now, do we suspect that that's because black brokers don't know what they're doing?
Okay.
Or do we suspect that there's a lot of systemic and like historical narrative around that, right? Because like a real estate business is built on like a new broker that jumps out. That person's depending on their sphere of influence, the people that they know, the people that they grew up with. Like those are the folks that are going to be your first customers, frankly.
Right.
That's where that's going to come from. You go to a firm, the firm's not going to hand you a bunch of leads and say, here, go sell these people houses. You have to go out there and find people who want to buy a house or sell a house. And those people are going to come from the folks that you know, the folks that you grew up with.
Right.
Well, the folks that you know and the folks that you grew up with are largely poor or are largely economically disadvantaged for some reasons. That's the pool of people that you have to work with.
Okay.
Right? And so that's what you got.
Right.
And so for a lot of black people, like there's not a whole lot of money in that space. So they have to kind of work with them. You're still going to
In
talk
the
to
real
them.
estate space,
Yeah.
or the demographic space of real estate that you're talking about.
Both, because I mean, like if I'm saying, like because black home ownership is low compared to than it's been like even amongst black for in the past.
Right.
So if I'm in the business and I'm trying to sell houses, and most of the people I know are black folks, and most of them don't own homes, what houses am I selling? Right? Like,
can I interject with my personal
Sure.
analogy?
Sure,
man?
go ahead.
That's why I never got into the Amway multi-level marketing, you know, whole thing like that. Cause I'm like, everybody I know, man, they ain't gonna, you know.
Your sphere is people who don't buy that sort of thing.
Now, but we're not talking about products and toilet paper and stuff. We're talking about a home that's yours.
A home.
You still go through that same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, because if you think about like the real estate, think about the concept of real estate in the United States, like people of color, and this is not just black people, but people of color have in a lot of ways been blocked out of that, right? Like blocked out of through redlining and all various tactics. You can't get your hands on real estate, right? And that which essentially blocks you out from generational wealth.
Right.
Because that is oftentimes how we pass money down to the next generation.
Yep.
It's not necessarily in a cash account. It is in the form of a home. You pass your wealth down in the form of a place to live.
Right.
And even like if I the house that we're in, like if I were to leave this world tomorrow, I may have a bunch of cash sitting around, but I can say to my son, here's this house. And if he don't want to live, he can sell it and he can take that cash and keep it moving and like grow from there. Like it ends up being a way for people for upward mobility. Most millionaires in this country got their $1 million in the form of real estate.
I'm gonna tell you another reason that is very important though.
Mm-hmm.
And this is about my father-in-law.
Sure.
He's in real estate.
Okay.
Like he got his foot in the door and is killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know the what you eat, what you kill thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like man,
Yeah,
he's a killer.
Right. So
you know what I'm saying,
He's
right?
been killing, right?
But I'm gonna tell you why it's so important because he don't. I hope he never listens to this episode or whatever. He gonna kill me. You know what I'm saying? But one of his church members, one of the matriarchs of their family passed away. Okay, matriarch got a gang of children that have good careers and everything, but they didn't know that mama went and took out I don't know what kind of loan it is or whatever. It's some kind of loan.
Reverse mortgage.
Oh, reverse mortgage. Oh my God. Thank you, John, man. Mama went out and took out a reverse mortgage and didn't tell the kids.
Right.
So when mama passed away, with reverse mortgage, it's like they want their money right then, all of it.
Pay, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And with it being thrown on them like that, you know, they wasn't able to get the money together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think insurance money had already been dispersed and spent or whatever. I don't know, you know, before they found out about this. And, you know, they didn't want to lose the house. It's the house that, it was mama's house. That's mama's house. That's Big Mama's house. That's
everybody's memories are in there.
That's mama's
People
house.
got whoopings in there. They came, all their memories coming up happened in that house. So it's an important place.
all of that. So the family had two options. They could have either went to one of the real estate dealers that, you know, that'll give you a check for the house right now, but all he gonna do is flip it and throw it right back on the market, you know what I'm saying? Or they could go to somebody who can, you know, it's gonna be theirs, but they still can kind of keep it in the family and give them more options. And my father-in-law was able to be that person for them. You know what I'm saying? Because of the relationship that they had over the years, they was able to go to my father-in-law and be like, look, you know, can you buy this house to stop the people from getting it so we can kind of still keep it in the family.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And, you know, I told my father-in-law, I said, look, man, that's all good and well, but, you know, you got to get your check, though, right? You know what I'm saying?
Figure out how to recover,
Yeah, we definitely going to talk about that, but it's very important for people of color to have the ability to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right,
because
right.
I'm sure that has happened so many times in so many of our families.
Right.
And they didn't have a person like my father-in-law to turn
to step in and save the property, or I mean, and it goes even beyond that, right? Like it's it's been an issue where like we weren't even able to get to the property in the first place.
Right.
And so that's like the big issue. And then when you did get the property, there were ways to get it out of your hands.
Right.
You know, here in North Carolina, Franklin County, like all kinds of like deed records and so forth got lost some years ago, just like magically kind of disappeared. And like deed records are an indication of like who owned what,
right,
and who passed on what to whom, and
the
things
receipts.
like that. Right, the receipts.
Right.
And so like you can't, even if you had a claim to a piece of property, you can no longer really make that claim because the records that were there to support your claim are gone. Wow. Things like that. So there's been all kinds of funky things that have happened over the years to kind of stop people of color from getting access to property and things like that. And, you know, redlining and that, you know, that the practice of basically banks saying we will not loan for people in that neighborhood. Like we won't loan for those spaces. Right. And it's essentially where those black people live, we're not loaning there. Right. So you can't own, right? Like, because most people don't have the kind of capital sitting still to go and buy a house with cash. Most Americans, regardless of race, need to go to a bank and say, let me hold something. And then me and you together will hold this place until I pay you off. Like, that's just kind of the standard practice. Well, if a bank says, I will not loan to this entire block of areas and all of y'all live there you are, right? Like, you're stuck. And
but they'll loan to the
you'll loan to the developer, right, to do their thing. And so the effects of that passes down generation to generation, right? Just like you pass down money, you also pass down debt, and you pass down the lack of money. Mm-hmm. That's something that gets passed along too.
You pass down the lack of money.
Yeah, you pass down the lack
because you're passing down the debt.
You're passing down debt, or you're passing down a lack of information. Like you can't tell your kids how to go out here and get it. You don't know, so you don't have that information to pass on. So, like, we're still trying to overcome and deal with that. So having more of us in the business, more of us out here talking about it, talking about what redlining is, talking about how to get a loan, how to go about, like, getting your finances and stuff together so you can approach a bank and say, hey, let me hold 6 figures. Because that's essentially what you have to do, right? Exactly. Like, you got to go to a bank and tell them I need to hold 6. And you got to get yourself financially in a position where they're comfortable with doing that. Well, it's not as difficult as it sounds.
Right, but it does sound difficult, though.
It sounds incredibly difficult,
right?
And
that's what scares
because
a lot of us.
We've not been part of the system. Even once we get a house, oftentimes, we end up paying higher taxes for the house because we don't understand what's going on oftentimes. We don't ask questions. For example, when you get your tax bill each year, your county taxes your house based on the value of the house. And the county has placed a value on that house. Many of us don't know that you can actually argue that your house isn't worth that much so that you don't end up paying that much tax. Right. You can say, hey, you valuated my house too high. Right. No, come back out here and look at this house again. Most of us don't do that. So as a result, we just pay whatever it is. Because for those of us who have houses, we got to that place by just simply paying the bill.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Don't ask questions. Don't push back. You just pay them people.
Right.
See, I just learned something.
I just learned something
every
too.
January, I get the tax thing saying, you know, this is what the value is, blah, blah, blah. And it's got a form, but I just look at it and I'm just like, I don't need to do nothing.
Yeah, when they value it, because there's a new valuation done ever so often. Like, so it may be every 3-5 years. Depends on your county, right? And they'll issue a value to that house. You can go and say, that's too high. That value is too much. You're charging me too much, because they're going to charge the taxes against that number. Yeah. So you want that number to be low. Of course, when you're talking about taxes, you want that number to be low. Now, when it comes time for you to borrow money on the house, when you approach the bank, you want the valuation to come back as high as possible, right? Because that way you can borrow in that gap. But again, you have the right to approach the county and say, you evaluated my house too high, my taxes are going to run crazy, let's look at this again. Most of us don't even know that that's a possibility. So we just pay the bill, get them people out your face, and what ends up happening is you end up paying more than your neighbors, because your neighbors have gone and said, my house ain't worth that much. You see what I'm saying?
I got a question that's burning me, bro. Sure. I have to get it off.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you're talking about that, right? Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, when a person of color is trying to sell their house, right? Mm-hmm. One of the problems they usually have is the house is appraised too low.
So that appraisal problem happens that can happen when you're trying to sell your house.
Right.
And, you know, what people have been reporting this is that the appraiser will come to the house and notice that black people live there.
Okay.
And they will, you know, based on art that's on the walls or pictures that's in the house, things like that. Because that's a clear indication.
So if I got the Ernie, what's
Ernie Barnes?
Yeah, the Ernie Barnes picture.
Yeah, you got the good times photo up in the crib.
I don't know these days.
Yeah, right. You know,
These days you don't know.
Or the velvet photograph. Remember the velvet oil painting?
Yes,
of the
sir.
sister with the topless sister with the
Yes,
fro.
sir. Yeah.
You got that in the house. It's gonna be obvious.
Well, when we were looking at a house last year before we bought our current house. We were looking all over, and I was looking at the house online, and I was like, "Oh, this is a nice house." It turned me off right away because they didn't have internet access because it's like out in the country,
so
and
that kills it.
that's a no-go these days.
No-go.
But it had like a recliner that went from one side to the other, but it was like all of them. It was like a connected recliner, so it was like 12 recliners in one. But over there in the corner, it had the nice china. But in the bottom of the china, it had a picture of Martin Luther King, JFK, and Malcolm X. And I was like, don't none of my people live there. And then I clicked on the kitchen picture, and you had the big spoon, fork. I was
Right,
like,
you just kind of know, right? These
Yeah.
things, these are, and what will happen is oftentimes an appraiser will go in, see that, and give the house less value,
Right.
Which can affect your ability to borrow against it, right? Because now I can borrow because you're borrowing against what the value of the house is. Well, if you value me low, right? You hit me, you just took money out of my pocket. When I go to sell the house to someone else,
Yeah.
and I've actually had this happen. It was tough. Like you have a client, your client has said, okay, I want to sell my house for X, right? You put it on the market, you get offers, and we had offers come in for X plus something, right? So all the offers were over that.
Right.
Great. We accept one of them, we're good, we're off to the races. The bank that's lending the money to the person that's buying the house from you, they're going to send an appraiser to the house because the bank doesn't want to pay any more than the appraised value of the home. They're not going to go over that.
Right.
They're not going, because they stuck with the house if things go bad. So they don't want to pay more for the house than it's worth, which is reasonable, fair. They send someone out and they see my client leaving the house. The appraiser saw him. And all of a sudden, the appraisal came back low. It came back lower than what we sold the house for.
Right.
So now the buyer we have to either bring our price down so the buyer can afford it, or the buyer's gonna have to bring the gap, bring the difference, right?
Right.
My client's gotta move. They don't have time to, well, you know what, you can't afford it, we're out, They've gotta move. So we ended up having to break some price to allow this person to complete the deal so we could go on to our next house, right?
That's what
so you
happened to
lose
us.
money. You lose money there.
You took the thought right out of my head.
See what I mean? Like that's lost capital. That's
So
lost
what
money.
I wanted to ask, right? Okay, in a situation like my partner and his spouse, for those who can't see us or whatever, my partner JX and his wife, they're in a interracial marriage. So how did it affect you?
So I know the neighborhood we moved into was a high demand neighborhood, but it'd been a while since that any house had sold there. So ours we literally put in an offer the next day. Like nobody had seen the house. I mean, we didn't even see the house because this was.
You made an offer sight unseen.
Yeah, this was May of last year when everything was going
nuts.
crazy.
Sure, okay. Yep.
Because we kept getting outbid in Raleigh, Durham, Creedmoor, even down south
know the
towards
story, yeah.
Clayton and Willow Springs.
Y'all got outbid in Creedmoor?
We got outbid everywhere.
And so you did a sight unseen, which
Sight
is oftentimes
unseen.
what ends up happening. You
Yeah,
end up
and
having to just.
we just happened to see it. It was after 5. They put the listing up at right at 5 o'clock. And the next morning, before I went to bed at night, I saw it and I showed it to her. And she was like, I got to have this house. And I said, well, let me think on it. And in the morning, first she didn't know where it was because technically we are in Wilson, but it's an Elm City zip code.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And she didn't know where Elm City was. So, because she doesn't like Wilson. Nobody likes Wilson.
Not crazy about it. Okay.
You can't see it, but Hill's shaking his head no.
I love you out of way.
But so I woke up the next morning and I sent our realtor, I said, go ahead, put sight unseen. I told him, it was a significant amount of money for the deposit, north of 10 grand.
Okay, yeah.
Which in retrospect was stupid. But he called me back and was like, they accepted it, which right off the bat, they told me, we bid too much money for it. But, it was right where they were asking at.
Your offer was right where they were asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, let me tell you back. It was over what they were asking.
Okay, you went over, which was at the
And-
time was what
Right.
everybody you had to do. Like if you're trying to win, you
Yeah.
got to go in hard.
So it was significant. It was a significant offer, and we got down there, didn't see the house until we brought the what do you call it? The
Due diligence.
due
money?
diligence
Yeah.
check, and walked through. Okay, we loved the house.
All right, you were good with it after you were already in. Okay.
The credit union scheduled the appraisal and everything,
Yeah.
and appraisal came back, and it was, what was it, 30,000 less than what we bid. And in my head, I'm losing it because at that time, which it's cooled off a little bit now, but you had to do 1 day due diligence. It wasn't like, you know, standard 30-day or anything like that.
No,
So
it's still that way. Like you,
Oh, it
if
is?
due diligence. I need my money tomorrow. If
Yeah.
I accept your offer today, I need my money tomorrow, bro.
So, you know, if we backed out, we were out of that.
You were out.
That 10 plus grand that I
Yeah,
put
that you had
down.
put in,
Like,
yeah.
because when I wrote that check, I wrote it to the owners. I didn't write it to the realtor.
That's who it goes
Or
to.
the bank. I wrote it to them.
Yeah, that's how they go.
And they cashed it the next
Yeah, that's
day.
what you do. You take it straight to the bank, my guy. You go straight to the bank, my guy. You do it.
Right.
What you supposed to do.
But, you know, when they came back 30,000, I was like,
Sheesh.
you know, I appealed it. You know, I worked with my realtor. We came up with other listings of, you know,
Yeah,
comparables and
listing
everything because
comps, yeah.
when we were looking at it, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, sure.
But then when I talked to some of the people that I know in my network, well, let me take it back. My mom's network, found out who that person was.
The appraiser?
Yeah, the appraiser. This had an effect, and you can't see me, but I'm pointing towards
That is crazy.
the contrast between me and my wife.
See what I mean?
But luckily, the sellers, you know, they were ready to get out of there. So, you know,
They had to go.
we brought it down to what they originally asked.
Okay. And they okay.
yeah, and we were acceptable, and it actually worked out because soon as we got in the house, all the other houses started popping up and selling, and so all these other houses are smaller than ours. And they're selling anywhere between $8 and $10 a square foot more than what we paid for. So I felt like it worked out in the end.
In the long run,
But
it did work out.
we also got blessed by the fact that the sellers didn't go hard and
They
be
were not
like,
jerks.
"Nah, we're gonna." Because the one thing that I thought about too was they would have had to, you know, you have a house go on, and then come back off. I mean, you know, come back
back to
off
market, yeah.
and come back to market. Then they would have to explain.
You got to explain why. Yeah.
why.
It's
So
messy, which is messy. It's messy.
so I think they came out the same thing that they could have got even
Yeah.
if they put it back on the market.
Right.
But it worked out for us. I mean, we love the neighborhood, but
Yeah. And
but
that's
it's
30,000
crazy.
is huge. That's a lot of money. Like, and
It
they're
is.
basically trying to stick you right there,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and stick you with a situation. And fortunately for you, the sellers were like, okay, look, we'll come down to meet you so that you can get in here. And often, and a lot of times, the seller has agreed to buy another house.
Yeah,
So they've got to close. They've got to finish this house. Like, so that whole, I got to get out of here. So I can't do this thing where I'm trying to squeeze you for money. Because they could have effectively kept their 10 grand, held that money,
Yep.
and been like, well, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Put the house back on the market and did it all over again, right?
and got somebody else.
And got somebody else's 10 grand, right? Like, and
It's some
so,
people who do that though, ain't it?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and I can't say if I owned a house and I didn't need to move right away and I had
Right.
the opportunity to do you, like I would because I ain't got to move and you know, and you offered me way too much for the house and like that's a set of circumstances. That is a thing, right?
But going back to generational wealth. My other situation I had was in my mid-20s. My grandparents passed, and they had their house. I mean, it's a small 1,200 square foot house. But I went to my aunts and uncles. My mom's got a lot of brothers and sisters, and they all had equal parts in the house. And I told them, I said, look, let's get the house appraised. Whatever the appraise is for, I'll buy it. And you know that doesn't work how normal. You know, most people want to get the most out of it. And luckily, you know, I was able to get in there, and I wasn't making a lot of money at the time. I mean, they didn't give me the house, but having that house in the family helped because I was only paying like $300 a month in mortgage. And I was able, you know, to start building off of that. Like, because, I mean, I'm not going to like.
On Roundtree Street?
No, Linwood.
Linwood.
Roundtree.
Yeah. What am I thinking about, yo? What am I thinking about? Yo, anyway, go ahead, bro. I'm
But
sorry.
anyway, you know, having that house, I kept that house 15 years before I finally sold it. And I sold it right when the housing market was taking off. So I made my money plus some off of it, and I really didn't want to let it go just because of that family sentiment. Because I grew up in that house just as much as I grew up. Well, I can't say there's another house I grew up because we moved around and stuff like that. But having that generational wealth, but the thing that stuck with me, and I'm trying to do this for my nephew because we don't have kids currently, and maybe even for my nieces, is my nephew lives in Indiana. I'm looking at houses up there now that we can buy where he can do a rent-to-own situation where I'm not hitting him in the head, so he can have that same opportunity that I had. But the difference is I have some benefits that, like y'all don't have. Like I have that card that I can pull. But and it's crazy in situations, a lot of people, my complexion, they don't understand that there is a privilege there, that there is...
Whether you ask for it or not, it has nothing to do with you actively going out to harm somebody or anything like that. It's not that. It's just...
Right. Well, I tell people all the time, having white privilege doesn't mean you didn't struggle coming up.
Right, it's not that.
It just means that you didn't struggle because of the color of your skin.
Because of that, right. Because of that. Because we don't... It's not an attempt to minimize anyone's struggle, because poverty is a thing for everybody, especially in America. Like, the system is set up in such a way that there has to be people who don't have, right? Like, in order for there to be overwhelming abundance, somebody's going to be starving, like, in that space, right? That's just kind of how the thing is built. Yeah. You know what I mean? If I have a company, I can't pay you exactly what you're worth, because if I pay you what you're worth, I don't have no profit.
Yeah, right.
So the system is set up.
You said a mouthful right there.
Right, like, the system is designed to keep people. There's going to be some like layers to this, and white people are caught up in that foolishness too. Like they're victims of it too. It's not to say that people aren't victimized by it, but there's an extra like layer to it when you add race to it. There's a new layer that gets thrown in that you really can't overcome. Right? You can't hide from it. Right? Like, and so yeah, it can get messy, but yeah, man, that's a a tough situation. 30,000. Oof.
Yeah,
that was tough.
All right, so as far as real estate goes,
yes.
Are you gonna stay residential, or do you plan?
Yeah, my right now my focus is on residential. I'll do a commercial deal and I'll work in commercial spaces, but my primary concern right now focuses on like helping families find places to live.
The future of commercial spaces is it bright? Or?
So I think commercial, like retail spaces, because there are certain things that people want to go out and buy. Right?
Okay.
And they're going to physically go out and buy that stuff. But I do feel like office spaces are going to struggle. Office spaces are struggling. You'll see a lot of office buildings that are empty right now, especially now with work from home. And a lot of the workforce is saying out loud, I don't want to come to your office.
Yep.
I don't want to come in there. I'm not coming in there. And there are plenty of employers who do remote now.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. Okay, that's what you mean. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
And so like... the pandemic kind of really set the stage for it.
Right.
Because a lot of companies, back when I was in cable, all telecommunications companies, not just Charter, but all of them say, we cannot let you work from home. You got to come in here. We need you in here.
Yeah, we got to go to work.
Right.
So you need to come to work.
You got to come in here to get this job done, right?
That's right.
The pandemic proved that was never true.
Yeah.
Because during the pandemic, they couldn't come in, and they had to let their people work, and people worked at home, and the business didn't fall apart.
It increased.
It actually
increased, bro. Like,
and so a lot of companies during the pandemic, they figured out, you know what, we might as well keep it like it is and let these people stay home. So I know quite a few people who went home and they never went back to the office.
Yeah, my wife ain't been back to the. She go like they got her now where she might go like once a month.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, she been at the crib ever since the pandemic.
Exactly.
Like,
so all that office space, what happens to that now? Right? Like if you were renting out a big warehouse in Mooresville, for example.
Right.
If you were renting out that warehouse and now 70% of your folks are at home, do you need to now rent this entire office building?
Yeah.
You don't. So, I do think there's going to be, it does apply pressure to like the office space.
And we've seen that like firsthand, me and him, back at home. Matter of fact, the spot that we was going to have you come to, it's actually a spot that houses a bunch of different office spaces.
Okay, yeah.
It's a co-working space, but they have dedicated offices also.
Some dedicated, like there's a WeWork downtown in Durham that does that. There's a couple of spaces out here in the park that does this. As a matter of fact, if I have to meet with a client now, I go to a co-working space here in the
it probably worked the same way as the spot back at home.
And just go in and, and it's perfect. And I think a lot of people are kind of moving to that approach. Like, why would I pay thousands of dollars a month in rent to have people come into a place that they don't want to be in, right? You know, it's just, you can save a whole lot of money there, right? So I do think the commercial space, the commercial real estate space is going through a sort of correction based on what has happened.
Right.
And people's desire to work from home.
Right.
I know I don't want to go back in the office.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want to go back in one. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I don't either, but
It's like being in high school all over again.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's like a high school classroom. It really is like a high school classroom all over again. You got, cliques and, got the kids that you have to actually separate them because they don't work because they're sitting close to each other and they're partying and having fun all the time. And you got this one screwing that one and just stuff going on.
See, that's the thing, man.
Arguments that happen and who got the beef with that person and who
Yup.
witnessed it. And now I got to go to HR and have a conversation about some conversation that I heard and
Right.
blah, 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 blah. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, man.
I'm not
Yeah.
getting into that.
But something I have seen with the office space is it's just like there's a building next door to mine. Like they built that right before the pandemic, fully occupied. And then I started working next to it at the end of 2020. No cars in the parking lot, maybe one or two. But since they come back, like nobody, like it's 3 cars in the parking lot. And I'm like, that's a lot of money there.
All that brick and mortar going to
A
waste.
bunch of brick and mortar.
And I know other companies that they are making their employees come back to work, but they're putting it under the teamwork. Like we need you to have that creative energy around each other and stuff like that. But I'm just like,
That's kind of somewhat true, though. A little bit.
In certain spaces.
Yeah,
In
because,
certain jobs, I do think you need to get together. You got to pull your team together. And but I think some companies are just kind of leaning on tradition.
Because then we talk
They
about
feel
an
like they need to
app
do it.
where you can virtually have somebody else in the same workspace as you just to feel accountability.
Microsoft was supposed to be working on a part of Teams as far as what's Microsoft's? Oh, the HoloLens.
Right.
HoloLens.
Where you would turn around and look with the HoloLens, and
Somebody sitting there.
Kay Hill will be sitting next to me.
Not feeling that.
Which I think it'd be cool for like a 15-minute meeting, but
Right.
And I don't know if I want it at all. Now I'm thinking about it. Now I'm processing it in my head. Like, we can do Zoom. We can stick with that. We can rock with that. But I mean, you're right. VR and augmented reality and that thing is the wave. It's the future. I think Apple supposedly got something product on waiting in the wings.
Yeah, in June they're supposed to be announced.
Yeah, they've got a product in the wings. I'm kind of good with it.
I'm gonna keep my eyes open now.
Yeah, for sure. I love tech, and so I'm gonna definitely keep my eye on it and see what happens. But as it currently stands, I have no desire to put on something on my face and head to transport myself to somewhere other than what I am. I'm totally good in this room.
Have you ever tried it though?
Like you go to the place with the games and stuff, but I don't.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? What's the home function for it?
Man, look, I tried.
I'm sitting in my house with this thing on and like.
Yeah, but I tried it one time. I bought my son an Oculus.
Okay, yeah, that's the one that's popping. Like if anybody's got one, that's what they've got.
Man, it really is like you somewhere else. You turn it around and you're looking up and it's like
It's all that.
It's like you somewhere else.
But see, I don't want to. I'll try it and everything. And the funny thing is, I haven't done it. The one time I had a chance to try it a few weeks ago, dude was like, "Hey, you want to try it?" And I was like, "Yeah, but the battery won't charge," so I didn't get to try it. But I'm really waiting for when it's like Star Trek with the holodeck and. I can use these 2 eyes.
Exactly. Because I think it's the wearing of equipment on your head and face.
The weight.
That's what's killing
inconvenience
it.
and
That's what's
whatnot.
killing it,
Yeah.
right?
Because when I do it, I want to be taken away by it. I don't want to be, because I know it, like, even wearing glasses, it takes away from my experience anyway.
It absolutely does. I wear them too.
Then having to wear like a heavy goggle set and everything, which I'm waiting for Apple's, because all the rumors and stuff that I've been reading is they're trying, like they did carbon fiber, which they're talking about it's going to be like $3,000-$4,000.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be like super light and all that. You know, that'll be worth a try. But because Apple, they're going to do it right.
Yeah, they tend to innovate and push things forward, and things that already exist, they tend to kind of push it another level. Like cell phones were existing, but then they came and pushed them to the next generation of what they could be.
And the other thing is they always, even if somebody else is doing it, they wait until they can, it may be just like +1,
right?
But they're going to one up whatever else is out there, but it's going to be, stable where just making sure it works good and people can use it. But I'm waiting for AR, like the Google glasses and stuff like that, where I can look out the window and it'll tell me in my glasses it's 72 degrees outside.
Sure. I went and checked out Google Glass because Google actually toured that around the country when they were really playing with it heavy. Because I was thinking it was going to come out. I was like, they're going to sell this. This is going to happen. And so they were touring it around the country and they brought it to Durham. And I went and checked it out. And it was kind of cool. But you still end up in a situation where I'm out in public wearing this thing on my face and it's got a little thing. And it's like, I don't think people are going to be, we've got to change our psyche around it.
Right.
Like walking around, seeing people wearing something on themselves, a piece of technology that extends the world for them. Like, I don't think...
Well,
That's going to be a hard sell.
No, it's a hard sell.
We couldn't even get people to wear masks.
Right, thank you.
We got people walking around like this all the time.
We do walk around like that all the time, scrolling and so forth. Like we do that.
It's not far-fetched.
Take it to the next level. Now you're wearing something on your face all the time. Like I wear glasses too, and like it's another level of glasses though.
Right.
It's like glasses with stuff on it, and so it's, I'm just it'll be interesting to see what that transition looks like. How do we get the public to start wearing something on their face all the time just so that they can experience the world differently?
Right.
We'll see.
Right. Okay. Super. So, Mr. Salmon, as far as anyone who wants to get in touch with you, anyone who's looking for a home, or just some more knowledge on real estate, period.
Yeah. So call.
Okay.
So my phone, like you can hit me up, 919-200-0616, right? So it's an easy number to remember.
Is it okay if we post this information
Sure,
as well?
yeah, absolutely.
All
Please post it.
Yep.
200-0616.
Yep.
919 area code on that. You can email me also at dj@persimmonandcross.com. Persimmon, like the persimmon tree.
Yep.
Persimmonandcross.com. Hit me up. Questions, concerns, like we can talk about it. If you're interested in selling your current house or buying a new one, you don't have a house and you want to start and buy your new house, I can get you going, get you started.
Word up, man. Any last thoughts?
I just want to thank you, right? Like, just give you both of you guys, all of you, a word of thanks for coming through, like spending some time with me to chat, and hopefully we can continue to kind of do this sort of thing.
Absolutely.
See what the future holds, but I really appreciate it. Like, again, like, man, you've been part of the culture and part of the culture for me in this space for a long time. I've always been a fan, dude. And when I see you working with some of the younger guys, like that's a cosign in my head. Like when I see you working with somebody, I'm like, that's somebody that we all need to keep our eyes on, man. And I really appreciate that from you. And again, like just much success and keep pushing, dude. I really just love seeing you out here. So just keep pushing, man.
I'm gonna have to reciprocate that, man. Bro, like you're all about the culture. Sure. You're all about the upliftment of the culture. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to no, not trying. You're showing people how to move forward even after they're gone. Yeah. That's very important.
Yeah.
And I appreciate
if you really love this thing, man, like you're doing this. It ain't got nothing to do, again, like I was saying about the soothsayer, like, man, if you were to find out that you're not gonna make no money doing this thing that you claim you love so much, would you still keep writing those rhymes?
That's a hell of a question.
Would you still keep, banging on that drum machine? Would you still keep doing the thing that you love? Like, because I think that's what's really what it's about. Because if your motivation is like a check or some fame or whatever, it ain't gonna never be right anyway. Right? It ain't gonna never be right.
Listen, man, thank you for your time and your expertise, for sure, man.
I got one more question.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
And this is a question I'm gonna start asking all of our guests.
Nice.
And it's a question I heard on another podcast, but I think it speaks to a lot of things. What is the worst advice you've ever been given?
Yeah. Let me think about this for a second. The worst advice that I've been given. I think it probably has to do with personal relationships. Because I think, and honestly, and that's the thing, like, so I can't pinpoint a specific thing, but I can tell you this. The worst advice I've probably given over my life probably has to do with like just personal relationships, like romantic relationships, and like how to deal with partnerships and things like that.
But yeah, everybody's an expert.
Because I also think that men do a poor job of giving advice to like we just do a poor job.
Yeah.
It's based on, because a lot of our advice is based on like things and ideas that aren't reasonable, right? Like, so Yeah, I would just be mindful of the advice that I take from people around personal relationships. And I think as a general piece of advice that works for me is just to not take any advice. Like, don't take advice.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I don't mean don't listen to what anybody has to say. But recognize that if you listen to what somebody has to say about a particular thing and you decide to go with that, that is still your choice.
Right.
That's still you doing a thing. And if that thing blows up in your face, it is not the person who gave you that advice's fault. You made an active decision to bequeath the decision to that person.
Yeah.
You handed it off to somebody else. And now you want to blame that somebody else. No shit, it's the fan.
Right,
You feel me?
right.
Like, you can't do that. So if you take someone's advice, it's now your thought,
You gotta
your
own it.
idea, and you have to own that, right? And don't put it back on the person
Don't gaslight me because it didn't pan
because
out.
it didn't
yo.
pan out. You know, I have a son, he's in his 20s, and sometimes I'll tell him, like, dude, like, this is what I would do there. Do what you're gonna do. But if things go funky, like,
Yeah.
that's what, because there are details about situations that I don't know as the
Right.
advice giver.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not you. And the set of emotions that are involved and all of that stuff, there's things that the person who's giving you advice can't ever grasp. So their advice is based on a position that they're not standing in and so forth. So you ultimately take responsibility for the choices that you make, even if that choice was made because of advice that you received from someone that you respect or whatever the case might be. Because no one's perfect. The person that you respect, that might have been right for them, but it may not be right for you. And their situation may have been completely different from yours. And now that advice is coming to you and you're taking it and running with it and screwing up something. Again, it's all your choice to make. And so just own your choices. That's from the good advice category. But again, the bad advice category for me, it really has to do mostly, I think, with just bad relationship advice. Like, that's mostly the advice that I've gotten that was bad in my life. I feel like damn, why did I do that? Because some dumbass told me to do it.
Yeah,
but then
I've been there.
but again, at the same rate, I chose to do that thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, ultimately, I'm responsible for the choices that I
Yeah.
make, and just embrace that fact.
Well, I'm glad we did this interview.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
glad
this
I
is,
got to meet you. Like, I really want to come study at your feet now.
For sure, man. We can spend time together. Let's kick it.
This was gold.
Dope.
This was gold.
Dope. I'm with it, man.
Yeah. And we definitely look forward to, building with you some more, man.
Yeah, I
You know
hope
what
too.
I'm saying?
Like,
So,
yeah, let's chat. Let's see if we can work some things out, man. I'm with it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
For sure. For sure.
Because right now we are still a very humble. We're at very humble beginnings right now. But you keeping the bar up, bro. Like, for real.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
I've seen your artistic work in the past, and if you continue to do what you're doing, man, this will burn. And I've seen interviews that you've done with other folks, dude. You're really good at this. Like, so
Appreciate it, man.
like,
Thank you.
lean into this, man. Like, lean into this is like a next phase, dude. You got Noriega and all these cats out here that's got podcasts and stuff. People who are MCs. There's a personality that comes with MCing, and I feel like bringing it to the interview space is key. That's a good look for you, man. So, like, keep doing it.
The information is gold. Man.
Yeah, man.
Like, thank you. I know I've already said
For
it,
sure,
but
for sure, man. You got it.
all right, Donald Salmon,
Definitely,
y'all. Donald Salmon, y'all.
Yeah.
Donald Salmon.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not the last that you heard of the good brother. So, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I know for a fact that you have enjoyed yourself if you listen to this episode in its entirety.
Yeah, so just make sure you like, share, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time.
Share it with the ones you love. Share it with the ones you hate. Rhythm and Tech, y'all.
Peace.